When people bring animals into their homes and make them pets, they are literally inviting them to become part of the family. And it no longer matters what kind of animal it is: familiar cats, hamsters, and dogs, or exotic cheetahs, crocodiles, and tarantulas. Each pet finds its way into the human heart, and parting can cause real pain for both the person and the animal. However, it's hard to overestimate how touching reunions become after a long separation. In this selection, we've gathered the most heartwarming moments of people reuniting with their beloved pets. Enjoy watching. In wildlife rehabilitation centers, orphaned young animals often find refuge, but sometimes adult animals also end up in their care. That's what happened this time when a young rhino named Crockett was severely injured in the wild and wouldn't have survived without proper care. Fortunately, Kylie, a worker at the rehabilitation center, decided to take care of this big guy. She worked tirelessly to nurse her charge back to health, and the rhino became so attached to her that he grew sad whenever Kylie was out of sight for more than a few hours. Remarkably, she managed to fully restore his health, and soon he will return to the wild. For now though, this big baby is happy to spend his time in Kylie's company. Though many people consider cats to be independent creatures, they are not immune to love and attachment to their owners. The story of Shu the puma is the perfect example. When she was just a cub, this wild predator ended up in the care of a young couple who decided to raise her as a pet. It didn't take long before Shu was indistinguishable from a domestic cat, except for her enormous appetite and larger size. In every other way, she's the same fluffy companion who loves to sleep in her owner's arms, play with them, and bring joy with her adorable demeanor. The only thing Shu doesn't like is when her owner leaves for business trips because she misses their playtime. So, upon his return, she always traps him into spending the entire evening together. How much care and love does it take to ensure a wild animal remembers you years later? Ask this wildlife rescuer who earned the unconditional affection of a cheetah named Gabriel. This man essentially raised the small cub after it ended up in a shelter, devoting all his free time to its care. When the cheetah grew up, the caretaker had to leave his job for over 2 years to work in Africa. Upon returning home, he worried that his old friend might not recognize him. But it turned out there was no need to worry. Gabriel had never forgotten him for a moment. As soon as the cheetah spotted the familiar figure, he rushed into his arms, expressing in his feline way just how much he had missed him. Their reunion was so moving, it brought everyone present to tears. Do you think this pack of huskies spotted a nosy neighbor's cat outside the window? Not at all, they're simply in disbelief, seeing their owner, Gunner, for the first time in a week. Gunner loves huskies so much that he owns a pack of 20 dogs. But misfortune struck and he had to leave his pets behind while he spent 5 days in the hospital. This video captures the moment Gunner reunites with his beloved dogs, who were so overjoyed to see him that they nearly sent him back to the hospital with multiple fractures. What's truly amazing is how Gunner manages to care for and walk this energetic pack, whose boundless enthusiasm could tire out even an Olympic champion. Sometimes birds can surprise humans in the most delightful ways, especially when they have a reason to be grateful. This pelican named Phil was once rescued by a man. Although it took time to build trust between them, the bird eventually decided not to leave his savior even after fully recovering. Instead, Phil chose to become a loyal companion. Perhaps the comfortable conditions Phil enjoyed played a role in his decision, but the pelican more than pays back his rescuer by happily posing for photos with the cars the man sells. This unique partnership has brought them tremendous success. If even wild animals easily form bonds with humans and trust them as family members, there's no surprise when it comes to dogs, humanity's loyal companions for thousands of years. This snow-white beauty is named Loki, and for months he waited every day in the yard for his owner to return. Perhaps Loki thought his owner had abandoned him forever, but when the man finally appeared on the doorstep, the dog could hardly believe it. As soon as the man pulled back his hood, Loki immediately dashed toward him, joyfully greeting his friend. And it's no wonder the bond between the man and his dog was built over time, starting from when Loki was just a puppy brought into a new home. They've been through so much together, even months of separation, and just look at how touching their reunion turned out to be. For years, a young couple has shared their home with two macaws, Mikey and Mia. They don't keep the birds in cages, allowing them to roam freely around the house and yard. It seemed like a peaceful and happy life. What could go wrong? But fate often finds a way to disrupt even the most idyllic settings. One day, Mia flew into the yard for a stroll and was attacked by a flock of crows. Terrified for her life, the parrot fled far from home. While she managed to escape the aggressive birds, Mia became lost in the vast city and couldn't find her way back. Fortunately, her owners never considered abandoning their beloved bird and searched tirelessly for 24 hours. That was enough. They found Mia and returned her to her owner's arms right there on the street. Just look at how the trembling parrot instantly calmed down as soon as she was in the woman's hands. It's clear that only a truly caring owner can offer such confidence and love. Usually, people involved in volunteer work try not to get attached to the animals they care for, but in this case, the man had no chance to remain indifferent. A young man named Ahmed was helping care for dogs at a shelter when a blind white dog first arrived. From the very first glance, Ahmed realized that this animal deserved love and attention more than any other, and he gladly took on the responsibility. As a result, the dog became deeply attached to Ahmed and never confused him with other volunteers, always recognizing him as his person. The moment Ahmed appeared at the shelter, Arafa would immediately run to him, squealing with joy at their reunion. Over time, their bond only grew stronger, and now Ahmed and his companion can't imagine life without each other. Far from her familiar sandy dunes, Beatrice the camel doesn't feel sad for even a moment, thanks to the loving care she receives. Orphaned at just 3 months old, Beatrice would have been doomed without help. But there were people willing to take on the responsibility of raising her. She was showered with love and attention, and she responded in kind, truly considering her caretakers her new family. Unfortunately, Beatrice can't stay with her humans all the time because she's not suited to life in a bustling city. She often misses them, but as soon as they come to visit, she perks up instantly, greeting them with affection and kisses. Just look at how desperately this capuchin monkey named Xander clings to the woman, refusing to let her go for even a second. This display of love is no surprise since the woman has become a mother figure to Xander. She lovingly raised the monkey from a very young age, feeding and caring for him, and now Xander returns that love 100-fold. He always tries to help her around the house, looks after the dog, and gets very sad whenever he can't see his human mom nearby. But their reunions are always incredibly touching. Did you know that cockatoos are highly valued on the market, with a single bird costing over $2,000? That's a hefty sum, but for true owners, such parrots are priceless. Tofu the cockatoo is a treasure for a woman named Mercedes, not because of his market value, but because of their bond. Tofu has lived with her for more than 10 years and is a true family member. However, burglars who broke into her home didn't care about the bird's special connection to his owner. They stole Tofu, but miraculously, the cockatoo was returned to Mercedes 10 days later. Tofu was terrified, but as soon as he saw the woman, his fear melted away, replaced by genuine joy at their reunion. If you show enough kindness and care to wild animals, they will never forget the touch of human hands. That's exactly what happened between a woman named Tess and a chimpanzee named Kylo when they formed an unbreakable bond. The little monkey was found severely injured and brought to a rehabilitation center where Tess worked. She was the one who treated and cared for Kylo, and as a result, he became deeply attached to her. Tess, in turn, enjoyed spending time with her new friend. When she was transferred to another shelter, she felt heartbroken about leaving Kylo behind. Determined to reunite with him, Tess did everything in her power to make it happen, and she succeeded. Just look at how overjoyed they are to see each other again. It's often said that there's an invisible bond between humans and horses that no one can break. Looking at Millie and Victor, it's hard not to believe it. Millie had been working at the stables for a while, but it wasn't until a little foal was born that she understood what it meant to find a kindred spirit in an animal. Millie raised Victor with love and care, and the foal responded with complete trust. As Victor grew, their rides together were mesmerizing as they moved as one. One day, Millie suffered a serious injury and had to spend several months in the hospital. Words can't describe how much she missed Victor, and he also pined for her in his stall. When Millie recovered, her first visit was to Victor, and just look at how all her charges were thrilled to see her again. Of course, no one was happier than Victor, who had been eagerly awaiting his reunion with Millie. The story of this fawn resembles a Disney fairy tale. The little one was orphaned in the forest at a very young age, but was lucky enough to end up in human hands. A man who found the fawn thought it was absolutely adorable and decided to gift it to his sister. Like her brother, the young woman was delighted with the gift and eagerly took on the responsibility of raising the animal, naming him Donut. At first, the fawn was frightened of the unfamiliar environment and tried to flee back into the forest, his natural habitat. But over time, he learned to trust Lily and accepted her as his caretaker. The two went through a lot together, and their bond became unbreakable. Even as Donut grew older and learned to live independently, he always returned to Lily, who greeted him with open arms. It's hard to overestimate the level of trust a dog places in its human. And let's be honest, not all people deserve such unconditional loyalty, but the man in this story certainly does. As a hunter, he once ventured into the Siberian wilderness with a friend and his husky. An unexpected blizzard separated the dog from her owner, forcing her to be left behind in the taiga. The storm raged for several days, and the man was beside himself, worrying about his dog left alone in the forest. But his fears were unfounded, as the husky managed to survive by taking shelter in an abandoned house and catching rats for food, while holding on to hope that her human would return. Her faith was not in vain, as the man miraculously found his beloved pet and reunited with her. Sometimes, an unexpected encounter and the bond that follows can lead a person down a new life path. That's what happened to Ismail when he rescued a calf named Velar from terrible living conditions. Before meeting the man, the little calf had never known what kindness and safety felt like. But after experiencing Ismail's warmth, there was no turning back. Velar decided to trust him completely. The same was true for Ismail, who resolved to help animals like Velar by founding a rescue center for farm animals. Today, his organization is thriving, and the calf has grown into a massive cow, but their bond has only grown stronger over the years. Among wildlife rescuers, Luke stands out for his boundless love for hyenas. While most people perceive these animals in a negative light, Luke absolutely adores them and takes great pleasure in caring for them. Amazingly, the animals reciprocate, transforming from wild predators into gentle, affectionate companions in his presence. Just look at the tenderness with which a huge hyena, sitting on his lap, nuzzles him, showing no intention of causing harm. Despite his modest size, Clyde the donkey is not a suitable pet for a house. This almost prevented his owner from taking him home. Her original home wasn't equipped to care for an animal like Clyde. For weeks, she searched for a solution to provide proper living conditions, and when she finally returned to the farm to retrieve her friend, she learned that Clyde had almost run away in an attempt to find her. When Clyde saw his owner again, his joy was boundless, and now no circumstances can keep them apart. No matter how wild an animal may be, it never forgets acts of kindness and care, especially when they are vital to its survival. A woman named Dawn once found a lost fawn near her home and decided to help feeding and sheltering the forest dweller. She named him Thor and bottle-fed the little one until he grew strong, eventually returning him to his herd. But the grown deer didn't forget who saved his life, and now he often visits Dawn's home, eagerly enjoying apples and other treats from her hands. The fact that humans evolved from apes is further confirmed by the strong bonds of friendship between a man named Jalen and his pet chimpanzee, Caesar. Jalen began caring for the monkey when it was very young, and over time they became inseparable. But everything changed when Jalen was offered a job on another continent, forcing him to leave his best friend for 6 months. During this time, Caesar fell into deep depression, believing that his owner had abandoned him and would never return. However, as soon as the chimpanzee saw Jalen again after the long separation, he was instantly healed and refused to let the man out of his embrace for hours. To be fair, Jalen had the opportunity to extend his contract in Africa, but he chose not to, deciding that being apart from his best friend was simply unbearable. It turns out that sheep are incredibly tactile and affectionate animals when treated as pets rather than sources of wool and meat. This sheep's name is Cordelia, and she was once on the brink of death when her previous owner planned to turn her into dinner. Luckily, a young woman nearby stepped in, purchasing the sheep from her former owner and bringing her home. From that moment on, Cordelia's life changed completely. Not only was she miraculously saved by a human hand, but she also found herself in a loving home where she's cared for deeply. And Cordelia doesn't forget to express her gratitude every time they see each other. She never leaves the woman's side, radiating gratitude for her saved life. These moments are ones neither the woman nor Cordelia would trade for anything. The strongest bonds between humans and animals are formed in a single moment and feel like a little miracle. Such a connection arose between a newborn foal named Oakley and the farmer's daughter. Initially, Oakley was meant to be sold when she grew up, but the little girl fought for her right to keep the foal and she stayed on the farm. Now that Oakley and her owner have grown up, they can't see each other regularly, but every summer the girl returns home to her parents, where her most loyal friend awaits her alongside her loving mom and dad. Of all domestic birds, roosters are known for having the most feisty personalities. It's their way of keeping an entire harem of hens in line. However, this particular rooster loves his owner, Lena, more than anything in the world and doesn't let anyone near her. The woman literally became a mother to him, raising him from an egg, which is why he shows her such incredible devotion. His hens don't matter as much to him as Lena does, and she reciprocates his affection. But it's hard to imagine the challenges Lena's future husband will face when he has to meet her most passionate feathered admirer. This man named John had long been passionate about motocross. As a natural consequence of such a hobby, he ended up in the hospital with severe injuries. John had to endure many disappointments and betrayals during this time, but there was one being in his life that never left his side or allowed him to face his troubles alone. That being was none other than a cheetah, lovingly raised by John almost from birth. While the man was in the hospital, his pet suffered from depression due to the separation from his best friend. Remarkably, it was the cheetah that provided emotional support to John during his darkest moments. Just look at how gently and carefully this wild animal interacts with him, expressing incredible trust, truly breathtaking. Now, this duo is back to living a full life, and the bonds of trust between them have grown even stronger than before. It's not just horses that can boast strong relationships with humans. Donkeys can also become beloved pets. For Sophie, her unwavering favorite is a donkey named Dam Dam, who lives on a horse farm outside the city. This little guy absolutely adores the young woman, and she happily returns the affection. When they're apart for too long, Dam Dam becomes moody and refuses to obey commands. But the moment he hears Sophie's voice from afar, he rushes to her, making excited noises. And though there's always work ahead, this pair needs to spend some time together to fully enjoy each other's company. Wild cats, no matter their size, remain cats at heart. It doesn't matter whether they are domestic fluffballs or exotic predators, their essence is the same. This is evident in the bond between Vita, a panther, and Yaroslav, a volunteer from an animal protection society. When Vita was just a cub, she was rescued and brought to a shelter, but her wild nature was completely unyielding. Fortunately, Yaroslav was working there at the time, and he decided to take on the responsibility of caring for her. His efforts paid off, and soon Vita began to trust him, happily playing with him in her enclosure. Understanding that they would eventually have to part ways when Vita was released back into the wild, Yaroslav tried to teach her how to live independently. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed in this because the panther couldn't imagine life without him. As a result, she was permanently placed in the shelter where Yaroslav works. Just look at how overjoyed this duo is to spend their lives together. It's hard to believe, but this four-legged giant is gentler and more timid than a puppy at heart. He also loves sitting on his owner's lap, completely unfazed by the fact that he's nearly twice her size. Despite knowing he's adored, this dog behaves like a true scaredy cat when frightened. One day during a thunderstorm, he got so scared of the loud noises that he broke free from his leash and ran far from home. When the woman realized her giant was missing, she rushed out into the storm to search for him. Finding a gray dog under such conditions wasn't easy, but she managed to locate him and bring him back home. Since then, although he still fears storms, he no longer runs away from home. Isn't this a true testament to the love and understanding between a person and their pet. Rhinos are not typically known for their docility or gentleness. They are quite skittish, especially around humans, but when cornered, these wild animals can attack, causing serious injuries. Rhinos can also get hurt themselves, as was the case with Jessica, which led to her being brought to a wildlife rescue center. At first, she wouldn't let anyone near her, but one caretaker didn't give up and eventually earned her trust. Jessica stopped being afraid of people, and every time she saw her familiar friend, she would excitedly run up to him and eagerly enjoy the treats he brought. Although returning to the wild is no longer an option for her, Jessica is unlikely to miss her freedom, given how tenderly she's cared for at the center. Among all marine creatures, dolphins are distinguished by their intelligence and friendliness toward humans. While this is often seen in aquariums and marine parks, it's also true in the wild, where these amazing animals can recognize their person even thousands of miles away. The bond between Nicole and a dolphin was formed in an instant during one of her diving sessions. That brief encounter turned both their lives upside down. Now, every time Nicole dives into the water, a whole pod of dolphins accompanies their friend on his date. This underwater gentleman regularly brings her gifts from the ocean floor, which she rewards with tasty treats, nose rubs, and dental cleaning. Although alpacas are domesticated animals, they can still be found in the wild. This man was lucky enough to find a lost baby alpaca one day and brought her home. There, she was cleaned, fed a tasty meal, and put to sleep in a warm, safe place. The little one loved being with people so much that she decided to stay, forming a special bond with her rescuer. Even though the man can't spend much time in the mountains, he makes regular visits to see the alpaca, and she is always delighted to see him. Although wild boars are considered untamed animals, when raised by humans from a young age, their behavior can resemble that of domestic livestock. But this piglet, Cobus, shows exceptional affection for his owner, standing out from his peers. One time, when the woman had to leave for a few days, Cobus became so frightened that he was ready to follow her to the ends of the earth. While his determination was commendable, the farm owners where Cobus was left were not thrilled with his behavior, as they had to search for and bring the piglet back. When the woman finally came to retrieve her friend, she found an indignant Cobus, upset over the separation, who slowly forgave her. Everyone has their favorite animals. For most, it's cats or dogs, but for a woman named Leah, it's elephants. She even created a special nature park for her beloved animals who had suffered from mistreatment, offering these giants a chance to heal from their past traumas. Unfortunately, the park is in Thailand, a country regularly hit by tsunamis and hurricanes, so natural disasters can be unpredictable. One time, while Leah was away on business, a typhoon struck Thailand. For days, Leah couldn't find peace, unable to get in touch with anyone she knew. She worried, not just about people, but especially about her elephants. When she finally reached the survivors, her first question was about the elephants' well-being. Thankfully, all the park's inhabitants were evacuated in time, and none were harmed. Just look at how happy the elephants are to see that Leah is also safe after the long separation and the shared stress. Mother Nature is equally merciful and harsh to all living creatures, deciding how much strength to give to newborns. This little piglet wasn't so lucky, being the weakest in the litter, which led her mother to reject her. Fortunately, this happened on the farm under human care, and the owner took pity on the little one, deciding to raise her herself. At first, the piglet was so tiny she could fit in the palm of a hand, but now she's a fully grown pig weighing over 100 kilograms. Though she no longer needs protection, she still seeks out her caretaker's company, adoring her deeply. Whenever the woman is away for long, the pig gets noticeably sad, but all that disappears the moment they reunite. Jeremy and the wolf Nord have shared a friendship that has lasted nearly 10 years, ever since the man saved the animal's life. A lot has changed for both of them since then, especially the fact that they have each other. Nord has become an example of remarkable gratitude for being saved, while Jeremy has proven himself to be an exceptional caregiver, even to a wild animal. Now, the pair regularly travels together, and when they have to part, they miss each other terribly. Just look at how harmonious they appear together. It's hard to believe Nord is a wild animal and not a domestic pet. As the daughter of a zoo owner, Freya has loved wild animals from an early age and always enjoyed taking care of them. One day, she and her father took in some lion cubs, and Freya eagerly took on the responsibility of raising them. She fed and cared for the little ones, showering the orphan cubs with all her love, and over time, the wildcats began to reciprocate. When the lions grew up, they became so accustomed to life in the zoo that when the time came to release them back into the wild, they cried just as much as Freya did. Though she returned them to their natural habitat, Freya missed them terribly. Months later, she decided to visit her old friends. As soon as they caught her familiar scent, the wild lions ran to her and refused to leave her side, showing how much they had missed her. Typically, domestic birds are raised to eventually be served as a meal, but Olga would never think of harming her goose, Martin. It's not his unique appearance that saves him, but rather his personality and displays of affection. Martin's behavior is unlike other geese. He acts more like a loyal protector than a typical domestic bird. He always tries to accompany his owner, whether she's going to the store or around the house. When Olga can't take him along, Martin insists on compensation in the form of cuddles upon her return. Knowing all this, who could ever bring themselves to harm such a goose? Despite their intimidating appearance and massive size, bison raised with love can shower their owners with affection. A perfect example is the bond between a woman named Lisa and her bison, Helen. Lisa saved the baby bison from death when she was less than a week old, and since then they were inseparable. Helen was not only gentle and attentive, but also strong and helpful on the farm. Except for Lisa's honeymoon, the two had never been apart. Sadly, such relationships can't last forever, and after 14 years, Helen passed away, surrounded by Lisa's love, leaving an unhealed wound in her caretaker's heart. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support is the best reward for me. Thanks for watching, and see you soon. Bye.